Hello, friends. All right, you're all hiding behind your cameras. I understand. Not all of you, but some of you. All right. So in our last class, we started moving into the core of the meat of Pobonka's emptiness chapter. Up until that point, it was a lot of preparation and logic of as to why things are, why we're going to be doing this, and why we're doing the presentation we're doing. And now we're into the actual core of what is it we're trying to do when we perceive emptiness, right? And I think a lot of people misunderstand or think they're doing it, but they're not doing all the things, right? And that's the point of this teaching, is to really get at the idea of what is emptiness, and right, and what are things empty of. And so through as an extensive analytical analysis, right, and it is extensive, we're going to get to understand what it is that we're actually denying when we say, hey, look, something appears to you self-existently. All right, great. So everything's self-existent, right? Yes. Okay, wonderful. So good, go plant some different seeds. Great. Right. you know and and the thing is, like, to understand that contradiction, right? Like when you say things appear to you self-existently but are not. We say the words, we say things are coming from their own side, we say all of these things, but what the heck does it really mean? Like, what does it mean to say something is coming from its own side, right? Which is not, right? So the idea is we have to understand, if a self-existent thing were a thing that actually existed, right? That's the idea. If a self-existent thing actually existed, what would it look like? What features or what qualities would it have? Because you have to understand what features you think it has, what you think it is, to be able to then be like, well, it's not that at all. And this is really, it's a very powerful process, and it's also very slippery. Like, if you imagined, I don't know why anyone does this, but they always say it's like a greased pig, a pig covered in oil. Like if you were trying to capture a pig running around that had oil all over its body, and you tried to grab onto it, it would just slip on through. Like you grab onto the big pig, and as you squeeze, it just pops out, right? I don't know why anyone actually does that, but it's the expression we use. It's maybe what people did back in the day when they didn't have internet. They went to the farms and greased up pigs and chased them around for fun. That's what the kids did. I don't know. Right. But it's the same thing with emptiness. Like, you have to understand what it's not to be able to understand what it is. And understanding what it's not is also part of the negation. It's part of the understanding that emptiness is not a thing. It's not a mm, it's not a positive, in the sense of, like, you can hold on to it like a grease pig. It's actually the opposite. It's an absence. It's an absence of something, right? And that's what makes it so difficult, because you try to grab onto it. It looks like maybe the Spanish translation, there isn't a Spanish translator. Interpreter, excuse me. Someone's asking in the chat. Um, Sorry, it looks like parece que no hay traducción. Sorry. Que nadie vino. So we will see. Um, Maybe I could do the class in English and Spanish. That would be impossible. Oh God, it's so difficult to talk about it in one language. Um, because every time we try to get at emptiness, when we try to capture it, it just slips through our fingers like a greased pig. Like I think it's cuter to say like a greased cat or like I don't know, a little tiny thing, right? Something cute. Um, because we're trying to grab onto something that wasn't there to begin with, right? And that's what makes it so difficult to shift our mind into that because it's an absence, it's a lack, it's not there the way you thought it was there. But every time you try to meditate on emptiness, you're meditating on something that wasn't there to begin with. Right. And so it becomes this, it's just like this, it's like this paradox in a way. Like focus your mind on something that's not there. What? How do I focus on an absence? And that's the hard part. And that's the like, how can you have a perception of something that's not there? How do you have a perception of an absence? Like that's the $1 million question, which by the way, did not win the $1.8 billion lottery, which I was highly motivated to help the whole world with. Apparently my bodhicitta wasn't correct or something. I don't know. But my lottery ticket didn't win, right? Why? Because the numbers didn't match. Oh, really? Okay, that's good. But like, and people go, oh, it's because you don't have the seeds. Oh, I don't have the seeds. Okay. I don't have the seeds for money to ripen that way. Oh, you don't have the seeds for that. Okay. Well, how would you get the seeds for that? Well, you got to be generous, Tim. Okay, great. But to understand that seeds open up in a certain way to create a certain reality means that there's a there's a reality that's possible where I both win the lottery and I don't win the lottery, right? And then even if I won the lottery, would I have thought, God, Tim, your seeds are so good. Oh God, like that has emptiness. That could be anything, right? No, that's not exactly what I would do. I'd be like, woohoo, right? And I'd get in my car and I'd go down to Phoenix and I'd open up a trust and secret trust and no one would know. But there would be signs, right? There would be signs, you know, right? Money would start slowly trickling into the organization slowly so they don't destroy themselves and whatever. But the point is that I would think that I won from my own side, from its own side. I picked the numbers, someone else picked the balls with the numbers on them, and therefore I got money, right? The money came from the balls, right? The money came from the numbers on the balls, which I guessed yesterday and that someone else picked today, right? That's where all that money came from, right? And but we don't even think about that. Like we don't even think, you know, I used to go play bingo with the old ladies as part of my like, part of my like plant seeds for a partner, right? Go hang out with the old people, the lonely people playing bingo. What an existence. You're 90 years old. You live in a place with a bunch of other old people and you play bingo. And I sat with a lot of these people and talked to them afterwards and asked about their life. And they were executives. They were parents. They had families, right? They had all of those things, right? And now they're stuck in a wheelchair at 90 years old playing bingo. Like, that's where we're all headed, folks, right? Doesn't matter. I win the lottery tomorrow. I'm still going to be in a nursing home playing bingo when I'm 90. And you're going to come and play with me. Okay. You know, and then we'll talk about seeds and emptiness. I mean, like, back in the day when I was teaching, but I played bingo and was like, I wasn't doing it for lottery, but I'm like, well, look, I'm helping people win a game of chance. you know, Pick numbers out and then you win, right? Maybe that will help me win the lottery. But deeper than that, if I don't understand when something happens, then the lottery is useless, right? Because then it becomes a samsaric thing. Then it becomes a thing that just runs out, right? And is winning the money the cause for happiness? Is winning the money the cause for a successful Dharma organization? Is winning the money the cause for liberation and freedom? Well, yes, it was, because look, then we could have like a big organization and then we don't have to struggle for money and then I don't have to ask for money. And then we can go out and teach and then we could do all these magical projects and then we can go save the world, right? You know, put with that kind of money, we could put whatever politicians we want in any country, right? We could stack it, we could stack them all with Dharma practitioners, right? We could be executive producers of movies and put Dharma ideas into them, right? We could do all those things, right? But is the money the cause of freedom? No, it's not. It can't be. You have to understand how things become things, and you have to understand how a thing is a thing, which is incorrectly a thing, but the way that you perceive it incorrectly so you can perceive it correctly. If a thing was there on its own, what would it look like? Let's draw a picture. What would it look like? Okay. So we have to draw the picture first so then we can learn what it's not. Okay. And then you can win the lottery. But why? What the like? Or would you rather have total freedom and from pain and suffering? Someone should say, "Don't diamond deal me, Tim. I want both." Okay, fine. But I guarantee you that the cause of happiness and all those other things is not going to come from the money. Sure, you might not have to like worry about certain things, but that money is not going to stop your body from getting sick and old. I promise. Doesn't matter how many longevity things you do, that's not going to stop it. Maybe if you invested in a stem cell company and blah 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 and did all this and helped other people live long healthy lives, maybe you'd live a long healthy life too. You know, but you can live a long healthy life without that money either. You see, so it's not related. I still want to win, but I think freedom is a probably better place to go. Right. If you guys can't tell, I'm moving into fundraising mode. If anybody wants to help, I need $500,000. Let's go. And then we can change the world. Something like that. Anyway, so that's the really the main point. The main point is when you look at something, what do you think it is? Even if you're wrong. Okay. Roxana wants to be the translator. Can someone add her in, please? Por favor. Gracias por llegar. Um, so you first have to understand how something becomes something. First, you have to understand. No, so let me try that again. First, you have to understand how something appears to you incorrectly. What is that thing? If it were there on its own, what would it look like? What are its features? What are its qualities? All right. And I've said this a billion times and I keep saying it because you don't get it. And it's hard to get, and you have to hear it 1,000 times because then once you understand what it is, you can understand what it's not. Right. Okay. So that's where we were. And that's the discussion that we're in. And if anybody wants to help me, well, win lottery tickets, I don't know. Let's go play bingo or something. All right. Projection. Here we go. Okay. So where we stopped on a section and was giving us two examples. And the two examples were related or are related to their metaphors of if you don't understand what the thing is, you can't understand what it's not. And so the first one was about shooting an arrow. Like it's like trying to shoot an arrow without being able to see the target. Right? You get your bow and arrow and you're like, I'm going to hit the target. And you're like, where's the target? I don't know. Well, how do you know where to shoot it? Well, I'm going to hit it anyway. Right? What's the chances of hitting the target if you can't see it? Very, very small. Right? Probably near impossible. Okay. The second, oops, here we get my way. The second the second example here is trying to capture a thief, a robber, without knowing what they look like. They're like, Maria, go get the robber. She's standing in the middle of a beautiful town. I don't know, Paris, for example. Right. And I'm like, go get the robber. And she's like, okay, great. What do they look like? And you're like, I don't know. And she's like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm like, I don't know. Go get them. And standing in like, a big tourist area, right? And there's like thousands of people. One of them is the thief. And you're like, go get him. Choose one. What did it look like? I don't know. You know, guess. Do your best guess. Right. What's the chances that she's going to find the robber? Right. Damn near impossible. Right. And that's the same thing with emptiness. It's going to be near damn impossible to see emptiness, directly experience emptiness without being identified what you're looking for. And notice the example is that it's not what you're looking for, it's what you're not looking for. Right? Because it's something that's not there. Both of these examples are incredibly subtle. Pabonka didn't choose two random examples, right? He used examples of something you couldn't see, right? You can't see the target. You can't identify the robber. You don't know who is it, right? There's an absence, right? And so these examples are actually very smart and very subtle. And I think that's part of his genius. And I think it's worth pointing it out. When you're a teacher, you use examples that are, designed to help, really help. And it wasn't just random things that they chose. It was things you couldn't see. And the arrow has significance later on. All right, here we go. Let's continue on. Who's the first person in the list? Translator, interpreter, interpreter, interpreter. Oh, first person here is Maria Sihova. You're the first person in the picture here. Can you read the first line, please?
Of course, thank you. De la dempa. I think I can hear myself. Okay. De la dempar me chepe dempadang ranshengima group gui ranshendang ranyo me gui rangoni.
Okay. Two slight changes here. So this is droop, more like, right? And then this is,
No.
and then put the sa at the end. So it kind of gets pronounced like that.
Nui.
Nui, kind of like that, yeah.
Nui. Nui.
Use the French, like the nasal French is this
Nui.
na nui, like, so it's in the back. So the tongue,
No, nui.
so the bottom of the tongue goes here, back of the tongue goes, yes,
Nui.
yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Mm. Mm.
All right, this is this is a very short paragraph that gets translated very, very long. Okay. And this is important. Take notes, because this is where you learn Tibetan words for different things that we use in translation. Okay, especially when we talk about like things existing truly or coming from their own side or some nature of their own. Okay. So there's three terms here that are used to refer to the nature of a self, which we're then denying. The first term is denpa me. Okay. Excuse me. Denpa, excuse me. So if something exists truly, okay, what does it mean? So in Tibetan, this particle can be a lot of different things. It can be possessive. It can be adjectival. And it also could be a positive, meaning synonymous. Okay. So you have to, like, when you're learning to translate, when you see this, it can be one of three things. It could mean, what did I say was the first one? Possessive, right? It can mean like it belongs to something, right? It can also mean an adjective, not adjectival, clausal, in the sense of like which, like it can be translated as which, right? And it is adjectival, and it also can mean a positive, meaning that what's before and after are equal to each other. Okay. So you have to really, like, it has so many different meanings. So that's why sometimes it's hard to translate until these two lines took me like 2 hours until I figured out what was going on. Okay. It was like, what the hell's going on? And I had to go into Geshe text and study. And I was like, oh, once I got it, I was like, oh, this makes sense. So in this case, what we're doing is we're looking at a whole bunch of synonyms, but what we're actually saying here is it's not synonymous. We're looking at three synonyms in what we do when we're denying them. Okay. So we have three synonyms. We have denpa, we have rangxing, and then we have rang. I'm terrible at that sound. Okay. These three words, denpa, rangxing, and rang something like that are synonyms of each other. And so what we're trying to figure out is like, what do they mean? And then what does it mean when we deny them? Okay. So the first one means something that exists truly. Rang Xing means some nature of its own, a thing that exists through some nature of its own. And this last one means a thing that is coming from its own side, right? Its own essence, right? That's what that word means, is essence, right? So its own essence coming from its own side. All right. So this is very helpful as a translator to know what these words are meaning. And sometimes they're used interchangeably, which is kind of annoying. And then other times, even in translation, you can kind of get away with a different, depending on the context, you might have to shift its meaning a little bit, which again is another subtlety of the language. So, yay, it's fun. Okay. So, first one, what do you think? If I say something exists truly, denpa, right? When we're denying it, right? What are we saying? We're saying that it's not a thing that exists in truth, right? So here, these are kind of the three qualities or the three ways to understand the gotcha, right? Something that exists truly, something that exists through some nature of its own, or something that exists from its own side. It's something that's coming from its own side. Okay. And so this sentence is really about, here are the three synonyms. And then how do we say the gotcha, like the thing that we're denying? So once you understand the sentence, things that exist truly something exists truly, the gotcha is we deny it by saying that is a thing that exists that is not a thing that exists in truth. Okay. And how do I know what this sentence is saying? Like, how do I know that this is the gotcha and this is the synonym? We have this tela, right? What does that te refer to? Right? Because this means like in that regard, right? What does this te refer to? So this is the hard part of translation, and I'm giving you guys the how the sensitivity you have to refer back. So that right, that thing, what are we referring to? We got to go back a little bit, right, to this sentence. And what this sentence says is, if you're not able to grasp the nature of the self that is there and the self that is not there, then we're not going to be able to negate it. Okay. So what Pabonka is doing here is we're trying to understand the words that we're going to negate, and then we're going to understand what they mean. Okay. So the first one is, if something exists truly, we negate it in that way by saying we deny that it's not something that exists truly. Okay. And so this chepa means it is called, like it's called. So to translate this literally is to exist truly. If something exists truly, which is called, it's not a thing that exists in truth. Excuse me. All right. So now the other part of the sentence that makes it difficult is that the rest of the sentence does not carry the chepe through. You just have this, and then you have this. Okay. These are shorthand for what happened earlier. All right. So as a translator, like, and this is why Tibetan, you have to know so much and be able to understand the shorthand version of it, right? That it makes the language incredibly efficient. But you have to know what the reference are. And I have a particular theory, and I don't know how true it is. Why would there be so much shorthand in Tibetan? Why would there be such an efficiency in the language? Right, Anastasia. They were carving them. The way they didn't have computers back then, right? You didn't have unlimited cloud storage. You had wood blocks, right? And you had someone who was sitting there like carving it, but they were carving it in reverse, right? So they're carving in reverse. So when you put the paper on it and you run the ink over it, right, it then prints on the page in the correct, in the correct way. So it's highly technical skill. And it takes a long, long time. Excessive amount. I mean, it's like you can just imagine if someone's like each letter, like, you know, chipping out the wood, right? And the letters are like, that big, right? So you're like, imagine the person's eyesight, and they didn't have reading glasses, so like only young people could really do it, or they have to use a magnifying glass. So anyhow, that's my theory about why there's so much shorthand. But I also think it's like languages are also, they have their own efficiencies built into them. So you have to learn what the full forms are first, so then you can understand what the efficiency is. Anyhow, so this chepe gets carried through in these articles right here. Okay. So as I said, things that exist in truth or exist truly as the gotcha, as you understand it, the dela in that regard, then padme, right? It's something that doesn't exist, is not a thing that exists in truth. Secondly, if we say something exists through some nature of its own, rangxing, chepe, what we're denying is rangxingi, madrupgu, right? What we're saying is that it is not a thing that could exist through some nature of its own. And finally, if we say something is a thing coming from its own side, chepe, we deny it by saying that it's not a thing coming from its own side. Okay. So all this paragraph is saying is like, here's the positive side and here's the negation. When you say something exists truly, the gotcha is it's not a thing that exists truly. When we say something has a nature of its own, if it did, we deny it by saying it's not a thing that could exist through a nature of its own. And if we say it's coming from its own side, then we deny it by saying it's not coming from its own side. Seems pretty simple, actually, as words, right? As words. But then we're going to learn something else about it right now. But first, we get a quote because now we got to prove ourselves. Next picture here is Ludmila. How are you? Can you read this section, please?
Fine, thank you.
Thanks.
Great.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh my God, I've been highlighting the wrong text. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. You guys need to tell me these things. I didn't know. Okay. This part.
Shingya pe trelpa, trela tak chavani, ganshi no
No.
po nam ki shanla rakma lepe no rangshin te temet pani, tak me pau.
Okay, good.
Ce sunt pașin?
Excellent. So this word is nupo. Okay. It's not nopo, it's nupo, right? Which is very similar to the word we had up here, right? We had rangnu, right? It's and I made a little bit of a mistake and I want to correct myself. It's not that nui is different than nu. So that was a big pronunciation mistake I made earlier, Maria, and everyone else who who listened. So cancel that. Okay. No. Like it's not this sav gives it more of a umlaut sound of the O. So it almost has a sound like this for those of you who do German. Okay. I moved too quickly. So when you're a teacher, you will make mistakes and then you must just correct your mistakes and move on in just a minute. Okay. All right. So good reading, Ludmila. So in the commentary, Drelpard, in the commentary, which is called or in a positive, okay. In the commentary, which is, or it's just in a positive, right? This commentary is this. Shigapa, okay. And it's the 400 verses. In the 400 verses, this is Chanda Kirti's commentary on the root text by Aryadeva. Okay. So that's what we're talking about here, just so you guys cared where it was. All right. So in this commentary, let's see here. So in that regard, when we call something a duck, a self, we talk about a self nature. Okay. When we're talking about a self nature, what we're talking about is where there is some rangshing. What was rangshing again? Some nature of its own, right? No essence, right? When we're talking about its essence or some nature of its own, which here's the particle for that, which does not rely upon. Rakma lepa means does not rely upon other things. Shenla. All right. So when we're talking about this, okay, when we're talking about things, when we say a self nature, what we're talking about, so if we're defining self nature, is that there's an idea in our mind that those things do not rely upon other things. Okay. So when we're trying to define the gacha, the thing that we thought was there, something that has a self nature, Aryadeva says, well, look, what we mean by self nature is that there's some essence, there's some nature of its own that does not rely upon other things. Meaning, when you look at something, you don't go, like, I wonder where that came from. You just go mountain, you just go pen, you just go cup. You do those things automatically. You don't see how they rely upon each other. And even if you said, well, that mountain came from, when the continents bashed into each other and the mountains rose and all that stuff, even then you still think there's some kind of self nature there of continents moving and smashing into each other and lifting up with subduction and whatever the other term is and just pushing the mountains up, right? So that's one way that's how Aryadeva describes the self, the thing that has a self nature. All right. And he says the general absence of this, mepa, okay, the general absence of all of that where things don't rely upon other things is what we call dakmepa, is what we call a lack of self nature. Right. And we're going very slow here. So you can kind of, hopefully this can clarify some things for you. I'm trying to make it simple. The most difficult thing to do, I guess. So by establishing what something is, this is what we mean. The absence of what we thought it is on its way towards emptiness. The general absence, we're just calling it dakmepa. Okay, a lack of self nature. The general absence. General absence is not emptiness, but it's the beginning of the gacha-ing. It's the beginning of the removal of the thing that you thought was there. And I got the full quote here. So here's the first part. And let's read the second part. Pictures. Who's next? Natalia Safulina. Can you read the next line, please?
Hello, teacher Tim. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Denicho danganzak gichepani
Yewa. So it's Yewe.
Yeva.
Yay way, because it has the sa.
Yewei.
Uh-huh.
Yewei ni su tog
Mm-hmm.
te choki dag mepa dang nyang sak chi dag mepa che
Cha. Jao.
cha che chao che patatse te.
Nice. Good job. Okay, one word.
Thank-
Well, we're gonna play with this one. How did you pronounce it?
Cho
Okay, when you add the sa to it, it becomes ch.
cho
Ch. Like make it almost. It's
chu
almost a u, but not quite. It's a
chu
ch,
chu
like dharma or existing thing. Ch.
cho.
Nice. Good.
Thank
Nice.
you.
Okay, so we did the first part of the sentence. That the simple absence is called a lack of self nature, which means that you take things as something that doesn't rely upon something else. Okay. All right. So from there, you need to understand that this applies in two ways. All right. There's two divisions. Yewe ni su. There's this idea of lack of self nature comes in two things. And so this division applies to two different things. Ch, things, just things in general, and kangsaks, people. So when we're talking about dakme, selfless, like things that lack a self nature, selflessness, which we're talking in this case is lack of self nature. In Abhidharma, you would translate it as selfless. There's two things it applies to. There's two divisions. Let's call it two divisions. When we talk about the lack of self-nature of things and applying to people. And so we say, Chuki dakmepa, lack of self-nature to things, tongue, and Kansaki dakmepa, lack of self-nature to people. All right. Is the lack of self-nature to people and the lack of self-nature to things different? Anastasia says they're not different. Well, Anastasia, if they weren't different, why did he say there's two different things? Why are there two different things? Choki dakmepa and Kansaki dakmepa. The answer is yes. Okay. This lack of self-nature applies equally to all things. Okay. But we're making a division to help us understand better. The lack of self-nature to the things and lack of self-nature to people. Okay. And Pabonka makes the claim earlier that it's easier to understand the lack of self-nature to people than it is to understand the lack of self-nature to things. I don't know. When I asked my teacher to clarify, he told me that's a good debate and then walked away. I'm like, great, thanks. So that's my answer to you. I don't know why, but the lack of self-nature is the same, but we're making a division to be able to help us understand. All right, next line. I was going to call on her, but she's not. She walked away from her screen. How about Milan? Can you read?
Hello, teacher. Yes. Sengi Kien La Rak Ble Pa Min Pa Rang Ki Ngư Nề Dơ Phàm Sen La Thơ Pa Mek Chin Rak Ma Lệ Pa Rang Gi Ngô Wo Nhi Kỳ Súc Thúc Pa La Se La.
Nice.
Thank
Good
you.
work. Good. Okay. All right. So we know we've actually seen all of these words already. Raklepa. Raklepa means to rely upon. Rangina means coming from its own side. We saw it as rangna, right? But the rangkina is just exceptionally fine. All right. And you nerds out there, what does this mean at the end? Can mean or, yes. Can also mean something else too. It also can mean a question mark, like an interrogative. Okay. So, and actually, in this case, we can read it as a question mark or an or, because Milan said it's an or, Maria said it was a question, right? It can actually be both, and you'll see why in a second. I'm gonna say it as a question because I feel like it reads better in the English, but we can do it both ways. Okay. So is it the case, right? Are we saying that when something ne is coming from its own side, we're asking a question. We're referring back to this text up here, okay, where we said that when we say something has a nature of its own, we're saying that it relies upon the parts, right? It depends upon other things. And we use the word rangxing, right? And rangxing, because we learned our vocabulary at the beginning of class, some nature of its own. So after that, Pamonka asks a question. Okay, great. So when we say rangxing, we mean that it doesn't rely upon something else. So our question is, when we say it's coming from its own side, are we saying that it does not rely upon other conditions and factors, right? Which is what Shen means, like rely upon others, right? So we're using a different word here, coming from its own side, and asking, does it mean the same thing as it means when we say it's has some nature of its own? That's what we're asking here. Because we said earlier that they're kind of synonymous, right? We said that they were synonyms for the gotcha, okay? So I'm using this as a question, right? Are we saying that? And then there's an explanation that, yes, we are saying that it doesn't rely upon anything else. It doesn't depend upon anything else, right? It doesn't rely upon or depend upon anything else, okay? Pretty clear. But we also say, when we say it has that essence, is that it's self-standing, that it's capable of standing on its own. So we're adding a little bit more flavor now. Okay. Right. We're adding just a little bit more flavor to what it means to say, when we say rangi no ni, when we say it's coming from its side itself, like the ni is an emphasizer. Rangi no ni, which is the same as rangi ne. Okay. But when you're writing and using definitions, you want to use synonyms, right? You want to use different words. Does it merely mean that it doesn't rely upon other things like conditions and factors? When we say it's coming from its own side, yes, it doesn't rely upon and is not dependent upon other things, anything else, and it's self-standing. It's capable of standing on its own. So we're just adding another dimension to it, right? We're not saying that it's not that. We're not saying that it's not, relying upon this. We're not saying it's not relying upon other things, but there's this feeling that that the thing that's out there can stand on its own, independent, right? So I think this is my thought, and I'm going to have to study this more, but my thought here is that we use these different words to highlight different aspects of the self-existent thing that we thought that was there that's not. You see? So like when we say, where's the word here? When we say rangxin, like some nature of its own. right? Exists through some nature of its own. We mean that it doesn't rely upon anything else, right? But when we say the word coming from its own side, we mean that it doesn't rely or depend upon other things. What we also mean is that we give it this quality. We're like, yeah, it's there by itself. When you say it's coming from its own side, you're like, yeah, it's there. Not only does it not depend upon it, but it's there by itself. It's got some chutzpah. I know it has some pride, right? It's almost, it does have some chutzpah from itself. It's like, it got some pride here, right? I'm there by myself. It's announcing itself by itself, right? And I think that's a really important feeling difference. Like, one is you're like, nah, it doesn't depend upon other things. It's just kind of there. But then when you say coming from its own side, you're like you get this really wrong feeling, right? It's a wrong feeling. But it's the feeling that you have that it's there. It's announcing itself, has a pride. It's like self-pride. The object out there has its own pride. It's waving its own flags, right? It's its own country, right? And I think that's an important feeling to check in. So the practice here, okay, let's go to practice, right? We're saying a lot of things here. But the practice here is notice how you feel about things. Like, what different kinds of feelings you have. How do you take the outside object? How do you consume it? I mean, perceive it. Like, as it comes to you, the green of the house over there, or the bird over there, or the cup, or the Zoom call, or the teacher, whatever it is, right? How do you feel about it? Right? Do you feel like it doesn't depend upon something else? Or do you feel, ooh, I feel like it's announcing itself. It has a self-identity. I like this. I don't know. I just came up with it. Like, I like it. It has a self-pride. It's pridefully saying, I'm me, right? I'm the house. I'm the pen. I'm the teacher. The stuff you're perceiving. Okay. And we're going to go a couple minutes over because I think it's important to stop on this sentence. So how about, who would like to read? Anastasia Mansarova. Can you read the next line?
딜라티기 셰얌 잠기니 주페이 제 8월 강곡치 잠두르무 면통내 망해나 르며 롱며 Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't make a noise. Yes, correct. Like the time you just kind of went.
면통내 망해나 각자 묘민진대.
Yeah, nice. Good. Okay. This is my favorite line of today. And I'm taking a little bit of liberties in this. Okay. If you're only, okay, if you're only, literally, this is like the words of the teachings, like Sikhi Shamyam, Sheyam, Sikhi Sheyam, like the words of the teaching, okay? Something that you heard in class, okay? If that's this, right? Admittedly, right? What could you do with just listening in class and knowing the words really, really well? You would be able to gokche, you would be able to stop the mouth, okay, right? The ka, the mouth, and what is paropomin of the enemy who you're debating. Okay. So basically, admittedly, you would be able, just by going to a teaching and understanding the words, you could render mute any debater's objection. Okay. Any debater could come up to you and you could just be like, no, wrong thing. No, it's coming, it has some nature of its own. Bah, you can just do the whole thing, right? And you could just say, no, that's not coming from its own side. You know, you could do those words, right? And you hear Dharma practitioners doing this all the time. You know, oh, you know, Geshe did it to me once. She's like, oh, I was having an emotional moment. He's like, oh, you think that's self-existent? Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. He did it in front of everybody, right? He debated me and I lost, right? You know, but he was doing something else too. But anyone could do that, you know. And I translated this as the party line, which is kind of sarcastic, right? You could render mute any debater's objections simply by knowing the party line from the classes. And you could do that. And it's an admirable thing to do, right? But if you have not identified the gacha, if you have not identified the thing that we're going to deny, right? You will not be able to, excuse me, if you have not been able to identify the thing that we are to deny directly from your own experience. And this is the difference. You won't be able to refute anything. Okay. You can be the best, you can be the sweetest talker, you could be the best debater, and you can destroy people on the debate ground. You could destroy people in classes. You could prove to everyone how right you are. But until you have a direct experience of the thing that you have to deny, if you're not able to identify it in your own experience, you will not be able to actually refute it at all. And so what does it mean to not establish it in your own experience? Like, it's not enough to say, oh, that house is saying, hey, I'm a house, right? You have to directly experience yourself experiencing that house as something that is coming from its own side. And I'm not talking about saying, oh, that house is there. I'm saying you have to identify that you are making it, you are taking it as a house in your direct experience, above and beyond the words, right? Now, did I say don't debate people? Did I say don't be a master of being able to just silence your opponent, right? You know, silence, render mute, silence your opponent, right? No, yes, go do that, because over and over again will help get you to a direct experience, because you need to have that first in order to then know what to deny. Got it? So don't start, you can start doing the analysis intellectually, but go after the experience, the feeling, the direct experience. And when you can say, well, yes, pen, I get the pen. There's a pen there. Then you can apply the understandings of what's not there. See? All right, that's where we're going to pause today. And we're going to keep talking about that on Thursday. What's today's date? The 8th. Okay, cool. Yay. Thank you all very much. All right. Thank you, Roxana, for joining and helping out when our other interpreter didn't show. So thank you very much, and very much appreciate all the interpreters. I'm sorry that it's difficult. This is how you learn. You learn by, like, it'll be by osmosis, even if you don't remember what you said during the class. All right. Thank you all very much. have a wonderful, wonderful day and say goodbye to each other.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have everyone a nice day.
Cảm ơn
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you. Bye bye.
Cảm ơn thầy Tim.
谢谢老师，晚安。
谢谢老师。
All right. Ciao.